Budget Committee meeting of March 18th to order. Roll call, please.
Mr. Harris.
Here.
Mr. Healy.
Here.
Mrs. Burdick. Mr. Demick.
Here.
Mr. Fanton.
Here.
Mr. Havey.
Here.
Mr. Ricky.
Here.
Mr. Stockin. 6 present, 1 absent.
Thank you. Anybody have a spare pen? Thanks. Right, yeah. All right. Next on the agenda is the approval of minutes from the February 16th meeting. Would anyone like to make a motion?
So moved.
Thank you. And a second, please.
Second.
Thank you, Ricky. Any discussion? All those in favor say aye. Opposed? Those minutes are approved. County Treasurer Terry Ross with sales tax report.
Good afternoon. We handed out an additional sales tax report to show the second payment in March. This is the loose copy from your agenda. We are up this month of about almost 35% over where we were last year during the month of March. Overall, our receipts are up, the gross receipts are up about 20.32% from where we were last year at this time. After the diversion, we're up 19.4%.
Can you talk, since you're on diversion, can you talk a little bit about if they truly eliminate the AIM withholding, are we done? Do we have more withholdings before we're done?
Okay, we will have one more withholding in May of approximately about $235,000. I think it's like $233,000. We won't have the diversion for the town in the fall. It will end after the village diversion of AIM, and overall we have a diversion of like over $500 and some $1,000. We will only have this year the $235,000 plus the distressed hospital will continue. That was supposed to sunset, but we learned at NYSAC that that is not going to sunset, and we will continue to have that $35,000 a quarter removed for the hospital, distressed hospital fund.
Did they mention whether or not the state was going to reimburse counties for previous diversions for AIM?
They did not mention that. That would be great if they would do that, but I did not hear that at the conference.
Okay. Mr. Healy.
Yes, Madam Treasurer, the distressed hospital fund, is that because we have a hospital located here that's, or not? Or is that not relevant?
That is not relevant. That was a fund that was set up for statewide distressed hospitals, and that, to my knowledge, has not been distributed to any hospitals as of today.
So it's not necessary that our hospital has any financial issues at all?
Correct.
We're paying for somebody else's financial problems. All right,
And as of right now, we haven't paid for anyone's.
Yes,
so.
thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay, any questions on the sales tax report? Terry, can we jump ahead in the agenda since we're already talking sales tax and talk about your attachments regarding gas sales?
Yes, I attached a motor fuel sales tax report that was received by NYSAC, that we received from NYSAC prior to us going to the conference last week. And it pretty much details the price of gas in 2020 and the price of gas in 2021, and reflects the changes throughout every county within the state. You can see on that we were up about 53.3% for sales tax charged on gasoline, which equates to approximately $792,000. So as far as our sales tax going up in 2021, you can pretty much say $800,000 of that was due to gas prices. It does go on and say, you know, it has another graph of county New York City motor fuel sales tax revenues for the last, well, that goes back all the way to 2008, and it shows a estimate for 2022. So we received that from Dave Lucas at NYSAC in the beginning of March.
Mr. Barnes?
Yes.
The motor fuel tax, of course, that's at 8 cents a gallon. That's a flat fee on the, depending on the number of gallons sold, not the dollars where the sales tax would be affected. Our sales tax is up considerably because from motor fuel sales because of the inflation price of gas. Is that correct?
Correct. And sales tax on motor fuel is paid at distribution. So it's paid when the supply hits the gas station. And that's why you'll see some fluctuation in gas, depends upon when they were delivered the gas, how much they purchased, and then when they purchase their next volume of gasoline, that might be a totally different price based on what the price of gas is. So it's based on a distribution point of sale versus the point of sale to the customer. It's based on gasoline to the vendor.
So, the motor fuel tax simply is number of gallons as opposed to the price per gallon. And so that tells you, by looking at this chart, it tells us that the number of gallons from over the years hasn't changed that much, except for periods of poor economy. Is that correct?
I don't think I can comment on that. We can certainly reach out and get that exact information on that graph as to how that graph was calculated. But in reading this statement, I don't know as that is spelled out in there, Mr. Barnes. So I would have to reach out to them and see what they use for calculation on that. But I agree, it is different than a regular sales because it is based on the number of gallons that the vendor or wholesaler sells to the retailer.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Just to further muddy those waters, on the first page, they show the average price per gallon at the top from $2.30 to $3.04, which is an increase of 32% cost per gallon. But our revenue, sales tax revenue from fuel sales is up 53%. So it's not totally related to inflation. There is increased purchasing of fuel going on. Right?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah,
It's a difficult commodity to determine what the volume is, what the cost is. There's so many, variants in the commodity itself that, there's not always apples to apples comparisons on gasoline.
But it doesn't really matter that the sales tax is charged at the wholesale level because a gas station has a tank and it only fits so much gas. So they're making purchases based on their sales. Mr. Healy?
I was just going to ask the treasurer, I guess, I suppose part of that increase is due to the fueling station down at Quickly's in Belvedere at the crossroads of exit 30 and on 86. Is that a fair assumption?
That would be an assumption because we're not sure how much gasoline was diverted from other gas stations located within the area and what is new purchases. That's certainly not a number that we can get or see about what is new purchases for gasoline that might not have been purchased down the road. So I would say that that is one of the variables in our gas fuel tax is because we put in a new fueling station. How
Mr.
much?
Barnes?
I don't know.
I don't understand what you're saying. The sales, you're saying the sales tax is figured on the wholesale price?
Sales tax is charged on fuel when the wholesaler delivers to the gas station who distributes it.
The state
That's-
gets their money up front.
I paid hundreds of thousands of dollars in sales tax over the years, and selling aviation fuel, and the price that we charged, and the sales tax was paid on the price that we sold it at, not the wholesale price.
The state has different levels of gasoline tax. The majority, and I would say the majority of the tax is paid in advance when the distributor
advance,
purchases.
In other words, if I purchased
You purchased-
8,000 gallons of fuel, there was a sales tax figure
Correct.
in it. But when it came to actually paying the final tax, I had to compute the tax on the sale price, and any gas station has to do that on the on the price that they sell it at, and then they deduct the amount that they've already prepaid, and then they have to pay the difference.
That's correct. I mean, but there is multiple fuel taxes by the state that are in addition to the 8.5 sales tax that we charge. So the majority of the tax is paid by the distributor when he has delivered the gas from the wholesaler. That's the majority of the tax.
That's correct. I understand that.
Yeah.
But the way I was understanding what you said before was that that was it, that there was no additional tax, and then the final tax is paid on whatever the retail price is. So if it's $4 a gallon or $3 a gallon, there's definitely, so at the pump, it's going to
Yeah.
be.
We don't see those reports, so I can't, I don't know
All
what
I
the
know,
difference is.
and I don't either, except that I know when
Yeah.
I paid sales tax, it was
Yeah.
on the final sales price, not just the. Thank you.
Yeah, that could be, that's fine.
Okay, so two things we know for sure. One is that across all sources, our sales tax so far this year is outpacing inflation, so that's good. And we also know that Terry's probably never going to bring this subject up again with the board. Okay, any other questions for Terry on those two things? Okay, if not, let's jump back up to item 4, American Rescue Plan funding update. This is something Ms. Root brought up last week, and we're glad she did. And I don't know if we're going to hear this from Terry or from Carissa, but the board is interested in hearing if there's any updates on that funding and how it's going to be allocated.
Okay, ARP funding. We have, as you know, we brought forward to you a list of several items based on the reactions of the departments and the list of priority projects that we had already from the board. None of those have been decided on. We are ready to bring that forward again. We held off on some of that because of the emergency of the bridge at County Road 26, not knowing how we were going to fund that and where we might have to get that money. The state relieved us of that concern with their announcement that they were going to cover the price of that replacement. So we have been in contact with our advisors, Drescher and Malecki, and we will be meeting with them again to try to go over some final things, and a report is due in the end of April. I don't believe we'll have anything committed to a project by then, but it's time to really move forward and see where you guys want to spend that money and what you want to spend it on. As you know, the limits...
Invest that money.
Invest that money. How about that? We'll use that word today. As you know, the revenue loss calculation was increased to be a flat $10 million. If you receive $10 million or less, which is what we did, the restrictions have been, the restrictions are less for the $10 million that we got, which we got just under $9 million. So we have, we'll be able to bring forward a list. We look forward to the conversation regarding those plans to invest that money in our county.
Okay, so because we're under that $10 million threshold, it's still the same reporting requirements, right?
It is still the same reporting requirements, correct, but the restrictions are lifted on the use of that money.
Okay, thanks, Terry. So
welcome.
Carissa leads me to the next question. What's the best next step in this process for the board?
I think the next step for this board is to ask for Terry and I to come back with a plan for you. I mean, we're going to probably meet with our consultants very soon. We've sent them a request for that, and we'll come up with a strategic plan for this board to look at.
One of the most important parts, or one of the biggest reasons why we contracted with these people, was to determine which projects could be funded through other sources, other outside sources. Have they made any headway on that with the projects that they were given?
I don't think they specifically looked into whether or not a specific project could be funded by other sources. They're not grant managers, they're not grant writers. They were trusting the input of the department heads. When a department head would bring them a proposed project, that was one of the questions. Are there other grant sources? So although they looked at the question, they weren't specifically digging for the answer independent of the department heads.
So as you build this strategic plan, you'll be implementing your own scrutiny as to whether or not this is an appropriate funding source.
Yes, and our ideas of what would be on that strategic plan have changed at least twice since we received the money, you know, based on this board's wishes to commit fund balance towards economic development, and then recently knowing that we'll have money available for the County Road 26 bridge replacement. We won't have to look at this. So things do change over time. So we weren't prepared to have that strategic plan in place. Now we can make it.
Ms. Root?
So, Terry, I heard you say a report is due at the end of April. Is that a report to whom does that report go to?
That is just a general report to the federal government on if we have appropriated any of the funds yet or if we have not. So it's just a simple yes or no, we've got these plans in place or we have nothing in place yet. So we also are looking at projects that are $1 million or less, because there are certainly different reporting requirements if you go over $1 million. So we were also looking at those to see the ease of investing less than $1 million in certain projects versus the reporting. We understand that the reporting is greatly advanced for the $1 million and over, and there's a lot of restrictions on what you need to get that into the federal government to substantiate your spending of that money. So we're going to look at both of those.
Mr. Healy?
Mr. Chairman, yes, what's your timeline on getting back to us on that? Would next month be all right?
Really, we'd like to have some kind of a draft by May, and maybe we can then discuss it later in May after you guys have had an opportunity to review as well.
Thank you.
Any other questions or comments on the ARPA money? Okay, any old business? Any new business? Terry?
I have some new business. We finished up the 2021 year-end college, community college chargeback information. That was the report that Brooke and I handed out prior to the meeting. If you didn't get the little message, the pink replacement from the stapled copy, you can use the single copy to replace that. There was just a slight clerical error on that Mr. Harris caught and approached me about before the meeting. So we were able to get that corrected so you have a good report. But this report, if you, for those of you who were here before, you'll recognize it. For the new ones, we have different sheets that mean different things. The blue sheet is a summary by town, and that shows the number of certificates that we issued during the year, the number of students attending multiple schools, and the dollar amounts for each town. Just to keep you in the loop, community college is not a county cost, it is a town cost, but the county pays for the community college costs in lieu of sharing sales tax with the towns. So these dollar amounts, if the county didn't pay these bills, these towns would be billed this amount, and they would have to come up with these dollar amounts per town. It hit over $1 million for the year 2021. We had a total of 795 certificates that were issued from our office. There are There were some that were duplicates because the students attend a couple different colleges, but the program is split a third, or in theory, a third, and the county has to pay a third of their tuition for them to attend a community college in the state. The back side of the blue sheet shows, well, the front side shows by town, highest to lowest. The back of that page shows by town alpha. The green sheet is by college. So the first page of the green shows it alphabetically by college and what the dollar amount that was transferred to each community college and the number of students that attended. The back part of the green sheet is by largest to smallest. The yellow copy is the comparison from 2020 to 2021 so that you have that for a reference. There's a lot of information in there. I won't read through all that, but there's a lot of information on that. The back side of the yellow copy is by college. So the front side's by town, the back side's by college. The pink sheet is the cumulative report from 2015 to 2021, so that you can see all the comparisons, the number of students, the number of high school students, and the dollar amounts that were paid for each town over the last 7 years, I guess, 6 years.
Are those for just in person?
No, they include any online classes that were taken as well, and it also includes any high school students. So there are high school students that attend community colleges at their respective school, and then there are also the college-age students that actually go to the campus or study online.
And I'm assuming that JCC, the reason their numbers, amounts are so high is just because of their close proximity and their resourcefulness isn't reaching out to the schools.
Correct. Yeah.
34% of our, according to this, 34% of our expenses are for high school students.
Correct.
This will be part of the minutes, attached as part of our minutes.
I believe it will.
Thank you.
Mr. Barnes?
Yeah, the Fashion Institute,
Yes, correct.
one student, $9,500. So that's one student from Allegheny County, and it's costing the county or the town that $9,000.
Correct. In the past, there was a program set up with the Fashion Institute, and the state reimbursed us for some of that tuition for the students that go to the Fashion Institute. Because as you know, that actually has a master's degree program, and the original education law is only for a post-high school for the first 2 years. So the Fashion Institute we used to be able to get refunds for that. They have since disbanded that program, but we heard at NISAC that that's back on the books again. So we should be getting refunds for those students that attend the Fashion Institute. So hopefully with this student going there, we will get part of that back.
Is this based on the tuition for that school? In other words,
It is.
What do they charge, $150,000 a year for something?
Well, if this is a third of the cost for a year, then that's, they're roughly charging quite a bit of money for that semester. And I really don't know, without going and digging into that student, how many credit hours that is. I don't know from this report, but it's definitely substantial. And we are charged by the credit hour that the student takes, and we are also charged a capital charge, which can be no more than $150 a semester. So for each student that attends, we're charged a capital charge as well.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Any other comments on that? I just have one. I was glad to hear you mention that it's actually a town responsibility. And $1 million is a lot of money. It's almost 4% of our annual sales tax receipts. Yeah. Okay. Any other new business? One quick thing, since we're ahead of schedule anyway, for the good of the order. Got a bunch of these up in Albany. What's that? We are? No, we're not behind schedule. Anyway, this is only going to take a second. So, NACO came and had some really cool handouts about the infrastructure, well, ARPA and the federal infrastructure bill. And this one in particular is cool, and it just shows every funding opportunity to come out of that bill, and it's separated. I think it's organized by federal agency, but it tells you the program, the funding level, if it's formula based or it's a competitive grant or whatever, how counties access the money, if it's a pass through the state or if it's a direct application, funding requirements, local shares, and all that. So I think NACO said too on their website, they're keeping it updated with funding opportunities that are active. Like most of these are not active, but they're in the pipeline. But anyway, something maybe we can, as committee members, take to our department heads through committee. I'm sure they're all well aware of them as well, but so much money in this little packet. But all right, anybody have any comments on that? Okay, if there's nothing else for the good of the order, motion to adjourn, please. Thank you, Mr. Fountain, seconded by Mr. Ricky. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Adjourned. Thanks.